Mainstream movie festivals are a very worthwhile cultural event, and you have a fabulous one here in Toronto, TIFF. It's amazing. And what makes them really successful, like the Cannes, Berlin, Sundance, Toronto, Rotterdam, Venice, and so on, is because if you manage to get into these film festivals, you will be discovered by the distribution industry. And what the word discovered really means is someone will acquire your film, give you money, and then get it out there. And festivals become a very important marketing tool for any film. Now, that's the top layer, but when I started Raindance, I saw an opportunity or a need to help filmmakers who maybe didn't have the right connections to get into these major festivals. It's a bit nepotistic, I suppose, to get into some of the larger film festivals. Not necessarily TIFF, but that does happen, who you know. And if you're just starting out and working with minimal resources, sometimes you don't have that knowledge or skill or those connections, so we started to do that. We've been very fortunate over the years. The films that we've selected, over half of them, over 21 years, have actually secured UK distribution following their screening at Raindance, including some well-known British filmmakers who had their first screenings ever at Raindance, someone like Shane Meadows, who's well-known now in Britain, Europe, not so well-known here, Ben Wheatley, whose film Down Terrace was turned down by every single film festival in the world except ours, and he's since made Kill List, Sightseers. He's got a new one, A Field in England, which he just made in the summer of 2013. And it's gratifying to see that one's vision actually gets paid off, but you know, I'm giving myself a big hard slap between the shoulder blades, like, well done, but that's why we do it. When I started Raindance, I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't think it would last more than a year or two, and surely my competitors in Britain hoped it would finish within 6 weeks, but here I am, and many of them have hit the graveyard, the economic graveyard since then. That first year when I was doing events, I would have a lot of heavy boxes of photocopying that need to be lifted upstairs to the whatever venue, and the guy who helped me carry those boxes was none other than Edgar Wright, who, whenever I see him, still hates me for that one Saturday when it was 7 floors up with many boxes of photocopy paper. I then bumped into a university student who, at the age of 16, had told his parents he really wanted to become a filmmaker, and they said, "What do you want to do that for?" And so the deal he made with his mum and dad was he would get a degree at UCL in London, University College London. He was studying English when I met him to keep his mum happy. He was borrowing the equipment from the Film Society, free equipment, and making short films. And then when he graduated, he got a dumb job stacking shelves at a chemist and making a film on the weekend. And 9 months of weekends later, his first film, The Following, was made. He often stored his equipment in my office because it was very central. And his name is Chris Nolan, who's done extremely well. Probably most of the filmmakers of any repute in Britain have now touched Raindance at some point or other. Yeah, again, it's gratifying to do that. What we do at Raindance, the team, both here in Toronto and in New York, Berlin, Budapest, Brussels, and London, the other cities we have offices, do it not for money, God, but just to make sure it works. And the system, you see, has it's got the industry system, the one where you need millions and millions of dollars and unions and guilds and so on, and all the strings attached and all the creative interference that big business brings to any industry. Or there's the independent world where you get a camera just like that and a sound man just like that, and you go out and do something, often with the money that most families spend on a month's groceries at Loblaws, you know. So that's a very different way of looking at it. Unfortunately, the industry is a marketing industry, and they know how to make a $15 DVD that you can buy blank. Why would you spend $15 on a DVD? We can buy a blank one at Grand in Time for 20 cents. It's the marketing. It's that piece of paper goes around with the big actors' names on it, and the industry knows that, where the independents who make it with mum's camera and a bit of grocery money don't often know that and don't know how to do that. And so they make these wonderful films that just get buried. That's where film festivals come in. Well, the wonderful thing about Raindance is we have such a pool of people. We have Isabel and Marshall here who are skilled at sound and camera and editing. And we view filmmakers in this current age not as the traditional feature filmmakers, which we the Spielbergs and Lucases and so on, but more as visual communicators. And when you're a visual communicator, sometimes the gig comes from your head and you write a dramatic script. Sometimes it comes from the urge to let the world know about an injustice. So you have all these great documentary filmmakers. And other times there's the need to put bread on the table and keep the landlord off your back. And so you can offer your visual communicating skills to a brand or a company who wants anything modest like Uncle Norm's wedding or Bill Bob's secondhand car shop, all the way up into the more glamorous ads and commercials or pop promos for music groups and so on. So there's a wide range of ways that filmmakers can earn a living now that is different than it was 20 years ago when I started Raindance. Great idea. Yeah, about 4 or 5 years ago, social media is a topic. About 4 or 5 years ago, I bit the bullet and we got a Raindance Facebook and Twitter account. Oh, geez, I thought this was going to be horrible, and I've become a bit of an addict, on Twitter at least. And I realized that as things were changing offline to online, we spent a lot of effort developing a social media. We're now worldwide, we have 50 or 60,000 Twitter and Facebook, and it's really big. And the team can put 500 to 800 people on any website in the world within 10 minutes with the right headline, a tweet or Facebook message. And this gives us a great deal of power. But again, one needs to understand social media. It is not free. Yes, you can get a free Twitter account, but the hours and hours and hours spent managing it is not free. And then, of course, how do you use it? And a lot of people use it to say, hey, buy this from me, or contribute to my film, or whatever. And that's not how you use social media either. You use social media to, again, just let people know what you're doing and creating interesting, I hate to use the phrase, interesting content. If you want people to come back to your Facebook page or your Twitter account or your website, you have to always make sure there's something fresh, bold, innovative, interesting. And creating this content, be it a video or a text-based thing, is very, very time-consuming. But if you get good at that and think of yourself again as a communicator, as we were saying earlier, a visual communicator too, a social media communicator. What is the message? What is it you want people to think about you? And then very lastly in social media, it's all about branding yourself. And branding's got nothing to do with the website or logo. It has to do with what people think of you. So how do you want people to think of you? Or if you're running a company, what do you want people to think about that box of buildings that you own as a company? Do you want them to think of it as a manufacturer of widgets? Or do you want them to think of why you do something? See, that's a little deeper. Why do you do stuff? Apple is a company that makes computers. There's many computer companies. But why do they make their computers is because they want you to think differently about computers. And that's been the whole basis of their mantra since they started way back. And you see how that's very, very powerful. And that's the Apple brand, to use a recent, very successful thing. And to use another successful example of that, Martin Luther King had a terrific brand. But, you know, he was one of probably 1,000 preachers who could preach. But he managed that day in the summer, that summer, to get 250,000 people to come to hear him speak in Washington, D.C., not because he had a plan, but because he had a dream. And when they came and listened to the I Have a Dream speech, they knew why he was doing stuff, and that's what made his brand. And that's why he became so such an easy target for the people, his enemies, who ended up destroying, killing him. In London, about 3 weeks ago, a young kid walks into his office. His parents were wealthy, and he brought in this hugely expensive camera worth, I don't know, $20,000, $30,000. He said, show me how to use this. I want to be some cinematographer. This camera takes great pictures. And it just so happened that our cinematography instructor, Yugoslavian-trained classical cinematographer, said, actually, that camera doesn't take good pictures. He said, what do you mean? It's the best there is. He said, no, good pictures come from your head. And then he said, if I gave you the paintbrushes that Picasso used to paint Guernica, does that mean you could go and paint a painting as powerful as that? The ideas always come from your head. The advantage nowadays is that the physical tools are within the price range of any single person watching this, which means that anyone can go out and do it. But unless you have that idea, what you make might be meaningless. in the same way as those brushes from Picasso only work because Picasso had the idea for the painting. And I think accessibility and democratization of filmmaking is a great thing. Unfortunately, the downside is that the ideas aren't fleshed out enough. You call those scripts or story outlines or whatever. And that's basically the focus of the Raindance training program, is how do you pick up a camera like that you can buy for $1,000, I'm guessing, and $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, many thousands of dollars. You can buy one if you want, or you can shoot something on your cell phone, but it's meaningless unless you've got that great idea.